Today, I wanted to talk about this show that I just finished watching, Game of Thrones. Spoiler if you haven't seen it. I wanted to talk about the High Sparrow and all the religious fanatics, and how this part of the show, of the series, reminded me so much of the religious fanatics of today who are involved in cults, all these cult leaders, and how this show, how the High Sparrow reminded me so much about that. So stay tuned. There are these characters who come up in the show and they are religious fanatics, but they use their religion, their devotion to really demonize everybody. And their thinking is, oh, because we're so holy and we're perfect, we have the right to look down on everybody else. And that's what happens in the show. And then their leader, kind of like a cult, their cult leader is the High Sparrow. And the High Sparrow, in his way of thinking and in their way of thinking, they can do nothing wrong. They're perfect. They have no blemishes. And so they have this authority because they're praying all day and they're so devout and they're so clean, they don't sin. They have this authority. Let's call it what it is. Self-righteousness. That's what they're doing. They're being self-righteous. They're being super proud, being super arrogant, and they're looking down on everybody else, and then they're punishing everybody else. They're terrible people. And I'm talking about the show, Game of Thrones. I'm not talking about real life, but you can kind of see the parallels. So in the show, their high leader is the High Sparrow, which is so culty, where he sees himself as almost divinely placed, that he has this divine power to look down on people, to bring people to their knees. And the other character from these religious fanatics that appealed to me was the one who is always going to Cersei and saying, confess, confess. And her way of thinking is, this is merciful. This is a good action that I'm doing. But then later on, if again, spoilers, I think Cersei says something like, "You weren't being merciful. You're doing these things because it gives you." And I'm not saying word for word, but this is kind of what I got. These religious fanatics like to bring fear. They like to pressure people. They like to bring people to their knees through gaslighting, through manipulation, through fear, for their own satisfaction, for their own pleasure. They say, oh, we're doing this for good reasons because since you disobeyed or since you were impure, we want to have you do these atonements. But now let's bring it to the real world. When you see religious leaders, cult leaders belittling people who have been hurt, belittling people who have been wounded, and those people, many times victims of abuse, of spiritual abuse, physical abuse, they get told BS like, oh, you just need to suck it up. That was all that happened to you, all that abuse, it's not really abuse. It's God's love. That's BS. These leaders, and kind of intertwining the story of reality and the show, these characters, these people who are in this fanaticism of I'm high and mighty, I have the right to look down on you. I'm not well versed in all the Bible verses, but I'm pretty sure that Jesus said that they are hypocrites, that they are whitewashed tombs, that they are dead on the inside, dead in the inside, whatever. And I think the reason why these people, like in the show and even in real life, why do they like to torment people? Why do they say mercy or, oh, it's God's love, and yet they beat you or they humiliate you? Because they like that power. They like feeling on top. That's not being humble. Sometimes they'll preach humility. You have to bow to Like in the show, you have to show your humility and confess, but they do it in a way to totally twist the meaning. Rules for you, but for us, they can be proud and arrogant, and they can be abusive. It's very hypocritical. So in the show, as I was watching the High Sparrow and the rest of the fanatics, it really brought me back to that cult mentality of us versus them. That us versus them is, since we're in this group, we're better and holier than any other mofo out there. We're better and holier than all those sinners because they're not like us. And so that's why I'm bringing this up, because this show, that part of the show, really hit a nerve. It hit a memory, because that's what we experienced. That's what I experienced, of being in an environment which was toxic, at times abusive, and then being told, this is good for you, this is what you deserve, and then wanting to be free of that, and then being told that I'm being proud, or that I'm being impure for wanting to speak about the bad things that happened. So another interesting part was when they were trying to go get Cersei. And is that how you pronounce it? Cersei, whatever. Anyway, so they're trying to bring her to her trial. I think it was like a trial, or they were trying to summon her, but she has the mountain. And if you don't watch the show, you're probably thinking, she has a mountain. What is he talking about? Well, she has a mountain, and they're trying to summon her. These religious fanatics, these cult members. Let's just call them cult members. And she chooses violence, and it was just interesting how, I think that at that moment, if you watch the clip again, you'll see how one of these cult members grabs the axe and strikes the mountain, and the mountain dispatches that person, that cult member. And the interesting thing, the thing that clicked with me, is that they played the music that was playing was very similar to the music that was in Terminator 1. So in Terminator 1, you watch it. Like, watch the beginning when Arnold Schwarzenegger, when the Terminator, when he lands in Los Angeles and he starts walking, there's this music that's playing. It's like a drum beat. And if you watch that Game of Thrones part, it's like the same thing. And I'm mentioning that because the Mountain and Terminator, they're like well, Terminator, obviously he is a robot, but the Mountain also is like a robot. He just obeys. He just does what is expected of him. He just does what is commanded of him. And that's the same thing with cult members. It's not always their fault. Sometimes, in my case, there was so much manipulation, brainwashing, but you become like a robot. So for me, that part of in that scene when Cersei goes, "I choose violence." For me, it was kind of like robot versus robot, because the cult member is trained to just execute, just do what is told of you. Don't think anymore. You lose your reason. You lose your ability to think critically. And so it was just an interesting moment for me, and especially when they brought that Terminator-like music. And I'll leave the link to the clips so you can listen and you can go, oh dang, yeah, the music is very similar. At least for me, it was very similar, and for me, that was a moment of like robot versus robot kind of thing. But anyways, I'm gonna end it there. I hope you enjoy this short little reflection, and that's what I do. I like to watch movies, and I like to read books, and I love talking to different people and share my perspectives and listen to other people's perspectives, because my perspective is that of someone who left a high control group, let's call it culty, and I hope you enjoy it. So have a good day. Peace out. Love you all.